Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Tonight we're going to look at Cassandra template for Spring. So that means that usually when you have a Spring Boot application and you have some kind of data source and you include the Spring Data framework in the library, then you also get a template. There is also, for instance, there's a Mongo template and there's also a JPA template. And of course there's also a Cassandra template. And that's the one we're going to look into tonight. So let us just get started like this. This is my project. I've already I made another video about the basics about Cassandra and also where we talked about Cassandra versus MongoDB. The short of the long story is that Cassandra performs very, very well and it scales insanely well and insanely good, but it is a little bit more difficult to use and especially to extract data. Secondary indexes are not created per default, so you need to create a secondary index in order to add the secondary field in the where statement. So that those are the biggest differences. Here, this is my .compose file. It's very simple. I have an image right here, the official Cassandra 4.0, and I export port 9042, so I can connect to that through my Spring Boot application. I do not need to have any configuration at all in my Spring application, which I have right here. But I've added some stuff anyway. I've added the keyspace name, and I've also added this local data center because the default name is data center 1. And the data center, that is the collection of nodes. And I'm not using any clustering or anything like that. I'm just starting up one node, and then your data center name will be data center 1, and this is the port right here. I'm going to leave out the create if not exist schema today because we want to create the table with a custom CQL Cassandra query language. So that's what we want to do. But first of all, we want to spin up our Cassandra database so we have something to run against. That's why I already have a console right here. Then I can write .compose, and then I can write up like this. You can also use IntelliJ, but I prefer the console because then I can see what's going on. But of course you can use IntelliJ. You can just press the green button for play and up and running. Here we have it. It's initializing, blah, 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 blah. And to begin with, the Cassandra database, it starts up with no keyspace. A keyspace is what you would normally would call a database. So keyspace, database is almost the same. Keyspace, that is why you would store your tables. And Cassandra is a NoSQL database. That means that it has no idea of the relations between the tables, but it can still have a table, which it has, and then it has all of the key values inside the table. And the columns are still called columns with Cassandra, and the rows are still called rows. So it's a kind of you can use the same terms as you can with a relational database, or a lot of the terms are the same actually. So now it's up and running. This is very good. Let us get a new terminal because I want to connect now to my Cassandra because I need to create a keyspace. I need to create the first keyspace in hand manually because I cannot. When Spring connects to a Cassandra database, it expects that there is a database, a keyspace that it can actually connect to. So we will need to create this by hand. Docker PS. Then we get the container ID out on the right side and left side. Docker execute -IT for interactive and terminal, and then I'm using just the first four letters or characters of the container ID. That's sufficient, and then I write CQLSH, and that is the command I want to execute inside the Docker container. So that is CQLSH, which is the shell for Cassandra query language. So now I'm here. I'm actually very happy already. Then I will take a line that I've prepared. And there's this line right here. Create keyspace mic with replication, and then we have the replication factor of 3. If you don't know what to use to begin with, always use a replication factor of 3, kind of the default. That means that if you have 3 nodes, or it doesn't matter how many nodes you have, if you have 10 nodes, the data will still only be replicated to 3 nodes. And that also means that if one node goes down, then another node will, then data will be present on 2 other nodes at least. So that is the factor. That is the strategy. So it's a good default strategy to use replication factor 3. I only have 1 node, so we only have data on 1 node, of course. So I'm going to create this right here. Remember to end it with a semicolon. create keyspace mic. Yes, if you get a blank response like this, that means that it was successful. There's no errors. If I made any errors, like something in between, something like this, then I will get an error instead, and then you will see that. So if you don't see anything, no news or good news also in this case right here. So now we got the keyspace. That means that now our Spring Boot application will actually run because we have a keyspace to hook up to connect to begin with. In the last example, I had my table being created automatically for me. I had the spaceship right here, which I named where I named the table. I wanted the spaceship name to be spaceship with lowercase. If you use camel case like this, then you would usually get an underscore in between the space and ship. I just said that I want the name like that. Then I said I want a primary key, which is a UUID. This means it's just unique, and you have to set that's another thing that's a little bit special with Cassandra. You have to set this yourself. There's a tool, there's a utility for doing that actually in Spring. I showed you that yesterday. I might show it to you again, but these are the fields that we have, and we also have an object inside right here. We have a class inside as the field type of captain right here, and what is actually happening is that because we need to annotate this with an embedded. And then what actually happens is that the fields from captain will actually end up in the same table as the spaceship. So that means that these two fields right here will be these two columns. They will be created as columns in the table called spaceship. And when we have a secondary captain, what will happen? You might think then it will just be prefixed with second. So that means that we will have a second name and a second rank column added to the spaceship table. So that is the setup. I have this spaceship repository right here, which extends Cassandra repository. Never add allow filtering, then you have lost, then you have not understood what Cassandra is all about. I just showed it last time, so you can actually see how it actually worked. And now I do not want to use the spaceship repository this time. I want to use the Cassandra template. That is what this video is about. So let us go to my Spring Boot test, which I have right here. I have my Spring Boot test right here. You can actually see I'm auto-wiring the Cassandra template right there. Then I am creating an index right here. So that is a secondary index that I'm creating on model. So that means that after I've done this, then I can actually create where statements on the model. Before, if I try to do that before, then I'll get an error. Here I'm creating my table, and look what I'm doing right now. I'm creating a CQL. So that means that I'm actually writing this by hand, blah, 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 type. And then I give the name of all of the columns that I want in my table, and also the type. The type is text. The type is an ID. Primary. That's just the primary key. That's ID. That means that it's the first. So that is not mentioned in the columns right here. And we have a fuel, which is an integer right there. And actually, ID is of the type UUID. And here we have then I need to execute it by get CQL operations. If you're searching the internet for help, you might get examples where this is not a part of how to call the execute method. So in old days it was actually directly on the template, but now you need to get CQL operations, and then you can execute. You can call the execute method on the CQL operations right there. Like this, and then you can just and then you get a boolean. If it went well, then you get a true, and if you get if you got an error, then you get false right here, and then we assert true. Just to show you that we do not have that table right now. Select start from mic.spaceship and then semicolon. Error. Table spaceship does not exist. Okay, let us try to run a unit test. And when I say run a unit test, we actually do some. This is actually not a unit test. This actually creates a table in the database. I just want to use unit test because then it's very easy to execute stuff. So I'm actually using the unit test framework just to run stuff right now. Create table. It went green. I'm happy. Let me go out and check it again. Select. Now I didn't get an error. I just got the content of this table, which is right there. Okay. So we actually already succeeded. We ran something from a Cassandra template. We just executed our first CQL. We can be very proud of ourselves. This sentence right here, by the way, I did not figure this one out myself. I actually stole it from the log. The first time when I ran against the Cassandra database, then I enabled the settings, so it will actually create the table for me. This, if you enable this, if you say Spring Data Cassandra schema action create if not exist, then you can actually see in the log which CQL is being executed, and that's exactly what I did. I was lazy, so of course I took that from the log, and then I just pasted it in as this CQL line right here. So right now we actually succeeded already. We used the Cassandra template to execute a statement. The next thing we want to do is we want to select something from, we want to create a select statement on model. That means we need to create the secondary index right here. I'll show you the error first that we will get if we try to select star from where model equals to mass, for instance. Then I get an error. Oh, you need to allow filtering. Of course, I could allow filtering if I want to allow filtering, but then I've lost. Then I do not. Then I've created something that could become a huge performance problem in the future, and I don't know. And when I do that, then I do not know. Then I show to everybody and also myself that I do not know what Cassandra is all about. So what we do is that we create this index right here. Create index on my spaceship model, and again we use the Cassandra template. It is running. It needs to start up the whole Spring context. That's why it takes some time. And then it can run this test after it has started up the Spring context. So that's good. That's good. We assert this. The value was true because we have an assertion right there. Let us try again now. Select star for Mike.spaceship where model equals to Mars. I actually got a valid response, and there was no rows that actually matched Mars right now. That is pretty awesome. What else can we do? This creates a table if we want to create a table. We did that. Then if we want to create another key space, we can actually create other key spaces if we want to. So that means we create other databases. I just added this to show you that we can create a Mike 3 database if we want to. Run that just for fun. And we can also create a Mike 3.spaceship if that's what we want to. We can also call this flying object, something like that. Instead, so first we create a new key space. Yes, now we've got the Mike 3 key space created, but you need that initial key space to be able to connect to the Cassandra database from Spring. So you need to have one key space that you have access to. To begin with, that's just how it is. That's which is also okay, right? Usually you have a database that you connect to begin with. It's not something, that's quite okay. Flying object, let us see if it exists now. So I'll go here, select star from Mike 3.flying objects like this. Yes, now it exists. So we created a new key space, which is Mike 3, and we created a new table, which is the flying object. I'm already very proud of myself, and the whole meaning of this video has already been fulfilled. Now let us create some spaceships. You can see here right now I'm creating 1,000 spaceships. And then I'm printing out, then I'm using a repository to print out all the spaceship that has a model of Mars, and then we'll print those out right there. Let us see if this works, and that would actually mean that the way we created our table and our index, it was actually valid if this test actually works right here. And then we also get some data in our table, so then we can then we have some data to select on. I'm using Faker, if you can see that. So here we have this spaceship dummy data. That's a new class that I created, and inside the spaceship dummy data, let us just go up right here. Then you can actually see that I'm using Faker to create a captain. I'm using Faker. Faker, it just puts in some dummy values like weird names. And then we have the spaceship right here. So we create a new spaceship with the, and here this is a utility I was talking about. UUIDs.timebase. This will create a unique UUID for you. So this is the utility to use to get a unique ID. Let us just see, it is taking a bit longer than usual. Okay, it has to create, how many spaceships did I ask it to create actually? Let us just go back. Oh, there was an error right there. There was an error. Something with timer. Maybe that was okay. Let's see. Check right here. Okay, like. Yes, that's because I'm using like there. I want to show you another point in the end of the other video. That was that like does not work. So actually, let me just I'll comment this line right here. Because there's actually a problem with querying strings where you ask like, then you need to do something else. I'll make another video about that, so I'll not mix that into this video right here, and I will not print out all 1000 spaceships right there, but they were actually created. My spaceships were created. So if I do a select from Mike, spaceships were model equal to Mars, then I can actually do it, and you can see the model. There are some nice colors here also. Nice terminal colors right here. So here we have this is the UUID, and it comes from that utility, which is named UUIDs, which is included when you add the dependency for Cassandra data, for the Cassandra data in your Spring Boot project. Then we have fuel right there, we have Mars, then we have the name, and all of these names, all of the rank, investor data strategies, it comes from Faker, so it's of course it's just rubbish data, of course. But I really like Faker to create something so it looks a bit less boring. It's too boring when it says test 1, 2, 3 in all of the columns. Yeah. And of course I can press space, I can press enter in this terminal, then I get the result in the bottom. I can see there was 125 rows that actually had model equal to Mars, so I'm pretty happy. Let me just check if I want to do some other stuff, because we also had a... Let me just check. That is actually it. We can also use Cassandra actually for creating select statements. So if you want to create a select statement, then we can do something like this: select stuff. Then instead of having a, then we just say we can use the same select star from Mike.spaceship where model equal to Mars, like this. So now I've created a select statement, and then we can say to the Cassandra template, this is one of the strengths. Then we can say that this is a select statement. We can give it the CQL, and then we can say which type we want returns spaceship.class. So then we get this list returned, and then we can say execute.for for each, and then we can print it out, system.out printline. This is a reference to a method. That means that we will give each element of the spaceship to this method right here. If you don't know about lambda lambdas and methods references, then watch my video about lambdas. Let us run now and see what happens. So running. And here we have it, right? So we actually created a select statement. So that means that with the Cassandra template, you can actually say that this is a select statement. So that's what we did there. And also with the Cassandra template, you can also say you want to insert and then an entity, of course. And you can also delete an entity. And what it actually does is it takes the ID. So the delete by ID is almost just as good as delete the entity. If the entity doesn't have an ID, then we'll not delete anything. And what else do we have? We also have an update. So here's the update, and then we can actually give it a new entity. Then it will be updated by the ID, by the primary key, whatever you chose the primary key to be. So you can actually create composite primary keys, so it actually consists of more than the ID, which is nice if you want to search for stuff on Cassandra, but we will go through that another day. This was about the Cassandra template. I am very, very proud of myself. As usual, let me just check something right here. Yes, as usual. feel free to ask questions in the comments, and I'm very happy. I'm very happy for each comment that comes, both positive and negative. Yes, thank you very much for watching. Have a great evening, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye bye.